All right. So tonight, just to make things clear, the test is not going to be next week. It's the week after. So that's what I was confused by. And she came by. She threw me in a bag. She goes, I know we got the test next week. I'm going, oh, God. I'm not really prepared to prep for the test yet, which is good, because you need more material. You do very poorly on the housing section because we haven't even talked about it. So we'll talk about that next week. And then the week after will be housing. So first off, is there anybody who sells used cars or sells new cars or anything in the crowd? I got in so much trouble. This was a couple years ago. It was just a rough class all around. But because we were talking about taxes at one point, and I said something about the way the tax rates work. If you're in the real low strata of the tax rates, I don't write the code. But I'm just telling you that if you're not making much money, you're almost hurting yourself, It's if you've got, like, say, 4 kids and stuff, and you're not qualifying for every program because you've got an income. I hate to say this, but you have to look at your situation. You have to decide what works out best. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. But if you've got multiple dependents and it's just the way the tax code is written, and then in the lower levels, you actually take in money more than you pay. And anyway, at some point that'll need to be addressed, but you can't fault somebody from. Anyway, I wouldn't. It's a tough way to go through life, and you're certainly not building equity, and you're going to be in a bad situation your whole time. But anyway, so the other thing I got in trouble with was because the student in that case thought that I was advocating for that, telling people, suck off the government, don't pull the card, jump in the card, why not, let somebody else do it. I wasn't saying that at all. I'm saying that the tax code is kind of screwed up and that it incentivizes, the wrong word, but anyway, it subsidize, I don't know, it's not what you want. You do not want people to work less so they can get free health care. That's not where we should be. People work less than 30 hours a week so they don't lose their health care. Usually that's the employer who doesn't want to pay for the health care. But anyway, there's incentives out there that are built into the tax code and built into everything that are really disincentives, and they're not doing what they're supposed to. But the other thing I got in real trouble was, one, I had a guy who actually sold cars, and then I had another individual where she worked in financing of new cars, and her husband was a big car dealer. And I was saying basically, strategy-wise, if you're out buying a new car every 3 years, your lifestyle is going to be diminished. You'll have a new car, but there's lots of people out there that are going to be profiting off of your choices and your behavior. So again, 2 groups of people who pay interest, people who make interest. And you want to be the kind of person that's making interest. You want to be the person that looks a little further out in 3 to 5 years. I had a friend, he had a new truck, and it, drove it over something and ripped the whole exhaust system out from underneath his brand new truck. Took it back to the dealership. He did not have the money to get it fixed. But they put him in a new car, and he extended out his payments a while longer. And he thought he really got one over on him. It's like, you're even further in debt. I mean, it was just.
Did they take back the truck that you were collecting?
Oh, they took the trade-in on the truck. I'm sure they fixed it. But
trash can compared to what the value of it was before.
Oh yeah. He ended up walking out of there with a loan that was significantly higher than what he had, but his monthly payments stayed the same. So I'm not a new car guy, I'll tell you, and from the get-go that I've bought a few, and but I that whole going on the dealership lot is just, I just find it kind of demeaning. The way they talk to you, they especially if you've gone to college and you can do a little bit of math, it's just kind of insulting. Because you'll say, well, how much is this vehicle? And they'll say, don't worry about how much the price is. It's what your monthly payment is. Well, when my monthly payments are out for 10 years, yeah, I am worried about the overall price. And then the whole game they play with the trade-in purses.
You'll ask my manager about this.
Yeah, well,
It's
and,
like 40 minutes.
it's a tag team there too. Yeah,
It's kind of like the Office Space movie. They're like, yeah, we're gonna have to ask you to give us more money for this car.
well, and yeah, they act like they're your friend. I don't know if you saw the thing. Office Space is like my favorite movie of all time, and they've got a new video out that's it's political, but it's done in humor. But it's about the copier scene. You know where they're the PC load letter thing.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's a copier or a fax machine. I think it's a copier, but anyway, they've got a thing with I guess what would she be, Secretary Clinton, going after the server. Oh, you can see it on YouTube, and she's doing the whole thing, and they're out there in the field beating it up, and it's well done. It's you need a little levity in a situation like that. So anyway, yeah, but the Bobs and all that. Yeah, I've worked in those environments, and you just have to watch a movie like that now and again to kind of put things in perspective. So it's more than just cars. You know, we're going to talk about consumer buying strategies, but seriously, cars are something that is a big ticket item, and you have a lot of flexibility in the way you get things done. In Alaska, it's probably not as bad. I mean, there's 2 seasons. There's winter and then there's construction season. So the desire for me to have a really nice car is not like it used to be, because it's never going to stay clean, especially when we're in constant breakup right through the winter. And then once summer comes, it's going to be the road's going to be torn up. So I really don't want to have a super nice car. But anyway, super nice cars, like older ones, maybe in the range of classics, I've had all those, and you can do actually quite well if you're smart and you're able to fix them yourself and do things like that. It's more of a hobby, but for transportation vehicles, it's pretty much a losing proposition, especially if you live in the valley. That I have friends who commute from the valley all the time, and they tell me how it's so much cheaper and everything else, but I think they kind of lose track of the fact that they're burning through a car every few years doing that. And again, if you've got a situation where maybe you only need to come into town a few days a week, but if you're coming to town every single day, it's still, there's a lot of quality of life issues to maybe live out in Palmer or something. But in terms of making money on it, gas is cheap right now too. So but anyway, a lot of moving parts in that equation. Process for making consumer purchases, and then steps to resolve consumer complaints, and then legal alternatives available to consumers. And then at the end, we are going to talk more about the project, because I know the focus is going to be on the test next week, but again, I want you to kind of look at some of the project things. So, financial implications of consumer decisions, so trade-offs. Yeah, we already talked about credit quite a bit. You don't necessarily, especially if you're not going to be paying off the credit card each month, if you're not a convenience user, then you really need to look at something and figure out how much it's going to cost you based upon the fact that it's going to sit on your credit card for whatever number of months, and you're going to be paying 14% interest on it. If it's on there a year, it's $1,000 item. It's going to be compounded, so it's going to be quite a bit more than the purchase price. And then buying unknown, lower quality plans, they're less expensive. I'm not going to, argue. And some of the cars, especially in the car market, have come around. But some of the Kias, the Hyundais, things like that. And Daewoo. Has anybody ever seen any Daewoo's?
Yeah, my friend drives one.
Oh, does he?
It's horrible.
Yeah, we had one. Then Dad got a job and things went better. But
They literally fall apart.
Yeah.
A tire fell off the car.
So, believe it or not, a lot of cars start out sort of that way, or at least brand image, Hyundais and things like that. But now I think the quality is quite a bit better. So, but anytime you look in there, or you get something, I buy tons of stuff off eBay, especially electronics, and they are completely generic. If any part breaks, they are a throwaway item, because there's nobody standing behind them. So you have to think about things like that. Selecting brands that may be difficult to service or repair, so we talked about that. And you do see that, I run into a lot of this with equipment I want to buy, just in, skid steers and stuff like that. There's some off brands that are flat not serviced in Alaska. There's no dealership network. And so, depending on what you're doing, you do want to make sure that at least there's a mechanism to get parts. I've got a bunch of equipment well, not a bunch, but a couple pieces of equipment that are considered gray market, like a Hitachi bulldozer. They don't make those here. They're only sold in Japan. John Deere is, believe it or not, you may think that John Deere is a great American company. They're owned by Hitachi. And so the way they do that is Hitachi sells all the bulldozers here in the States. I mean, not bulldozers, sells all the excavators, and John Deere is responsible for the bulldozers. So I've got a Hitachi bulldozer, but to get parts in it, I mean, it would not be viable in a commercial operation. Around my place, it's fine, but if I need parts, that thing could sit broken for a month waiting on stuff to literally come from Japan. So that would not work out in a car kind of situation. Ordering by mail online can save time, but return maybe. Again, everybody up here, I think, is pretty well versed on what's a good deal, what's not a good deal. But sometimes the price is so cheap to get it from someplace else that you overlook it. And then time and effort to comparison shop. Some people like to shop, some people don't. But what you really have to figure out in life is if you're one of those people that can walk in and sort of be manipulated perhaps by a salesman. I know. I mean, I'm just not the type that would walk into a car lot and walk out with a car because, it was a great deal and it was close. If you are that kind of person, you probably should stay away from car lots because you've got a problem. I don't know what you should do, but counseling, something like that, but stay away from car lots because that's not how you want to be. I think I told you all about where I did sell, this was way back when in college, I was selling cable TV type stuff. And it was brutal. It was good education, though. I mean, it's something I like, but you learned all about consumer behavior. And what you found was people who couldn't afford it were the ones who wanted to buy. Yes?
The only time I bought a brand new car from a dealer, it was like some dude had bought the car from Subaru and then realized, you can't drive these in the wintertime. It was a Subaru BRZ, so he put it in a storage unit and then traded in at Kendall for a truck. So it was brand new, still had all the wrappings on the interior and stuff. And they posted on Craigslist or something, but I went in there and I was like, I'll give you 21 cash right now. And they're like, okay. And
so is that Subaru? I thought all Subarus were four-wheel drive. That one's not?
No, that one's rear-wheel drive. It's a collab car with Toyota, so it's got the Toyota and Subaru collab engine.
Okay. Yeah.
They took that, and that's like the only time, because I got like $7,000 off the car, so.
Because you were trying to finance it.
Yeah.
Oh, right now? Okay.
I made an impulse buy. I was buying stuff on auction, looking at tractors down in Seattle area, down in Chehalis and whatever, and I screwed up. I missed out on a couple good deals, in retrospect. I was and so all of a sudden this truck came up, and it was a Ford F-350, whatever, without chassis. It was a 2005, 2006, 70,000 miles, perfect. And I jumped on it, and then I realized, two-wheel drive. It's the old dog catcher truck. So it's a great truck in the summertime, but it's sitting in the yard. So again, I mean, people will make mistakes, but that was my own doing. I got a great price. I paid like $7,000 for it, so not a big deal. But just the same, yeah. Impulse buys. Sometimes though, like specifically trucks, for example, if there are absolutely no options on them, which they don't even really make anymore. They'll have those loss leaders where you can jump in and perhaps get one or something like that. But you have to be careful. Also, they'll talk about, there's a couple other problems with some of those really cheap vehicles where they're coming up from the lower 48, and you'll see that they'll have a salvage title rather than a clean title, which will mean, depends on what's going on, but it could be a flood damaged car, which is really tough to fix because the electronics and everything get all jacked up. So, dealers you have some recourse against them, but you buy one like that out of Craigslist and you could certainly have a problem. And anyway, a salvage title is just not as valuable as a full-up title. So It was a Jeep. I sold it. It wasn't a big deal, but I kind of regret that as well. Okay, so other things that happen, in terms of purchases, economic factors, supply and demand, warranty. We're going to see some of this going on here. We'll talk more about housing next week, but frankly, right now, the housing market in Alaska is not good. But it depends where you're at. If you've got a medium-sized house, you're just fine. But if you've got $1 million home, you better.
Medium size with the 3 years.
Well, I was talking to a good friend of mine who's still active. He's with Jack White, and he was talking. Yeah, it's price range wise. The $300,000 to $400,000 is quite marketable. In a lot of the market's very strong for that. But the $1 million homes are not moving. They're always slower in the big homes like that. But with a lot of the actual numbers with some of the oil companies and stuff have not dropped as much as you would think. But some of the new folks that are coming up aren't at the same level that the other folks were. So anyway, it's just a tough market. And again, if you've got one house, you only need one buyer. But just the same, it's going to drive down the market a bit. Personal factors, yep. Again, there's always a tendency, and if you can resist and not get the Mustang convertible or whatever your graduation kind of car is, and maybe pay off your student loans, or maybe try and do both. Shop around and get a good deal on one that's a couple years older. Like I say, I've had Vipers and 5 or 6 Corvettes, and then I've always had regular cars as well. But on every of the hobby type cars, the performance cars, I've never lost a dime. I've made money on every one without fail. But regular cars, it's just there's no way to make any money. But anyway, what I'm saying is, if you really have this need to have a fancy car, maybe get something that where the depreciation, because the depreciation is horrendous, right, when you drive it off the lot. A couple years into it, it kind of settles out. And if it's a good classic car, and classic being more power and all that stuff than luxury. Luxury doesn't age well. There's no status in, an old Escalade, but there is status in an old Viper or Corvette. So anyway, we're getting down in the weeds now, but it's more than just cars. But anyway, work through that. Social factors, lifestyle. So again, you're going to be affected by, by lots of things out there. You are, a victim of marketing, and especially if it's well targeted, you're going to have this insatiable desire to have something that probably is in your financial best interest. Price, be aware price varies with the time of year. In spite of what they say about the big PFD sales, I want to think that the prices are probably, just based upon supply and demand, that is probably not the time to be jumping on a new car. They're going to make it look like this is the big PFD sale, but again, basic economics and marketing would tell you that that's when the demand is the highest, and that's not going to happen. Has anybody brought up a car from lower 48? Yeah? Did you drive it or ship
No, we
it?
shipped it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can be kind of pricey.
Yeah, it was like $1,200. It was a 2,500 Dodge Ram.
Yeah. That dog catcher truck I brought up, it was about that too. But anyway, so store selection. So we're back in the retail realm now. Choice of retailer depends on location, price, product, cooperatives. We're pretty much familiar with that. But don't be. You still have to comparison shop. Just because it's a Costco or at Sam's does not mean it's absolutely the best deal. And even places like Walmart, if you're sticking to that center aisle, there's probably some deals out there, but you veer off that and you get into regular priced items, and it can be more expensive than even, or it's about the same as Fred Meyer's or whatever traditional kind of retailer. So, I don't know. Probably not a lot of Walmart shoppers there, huh? The Eagle River one's not bad. That's why people when I say Walmart, people are like, oh, God, you should. No, the one on, what is it, A Street? That's a little scary, a little sketchy. But there's, different levels. But nonprofit organizations, cooperatives, not so much here. And Costco and those guys are certainly not nonprofit. But it's more of a, it's an ambiance. It's a marketing tool where and there can be some good deals there, but it's not always the case, especially when you're buying in quantity and throwing out half of it. That's definitely not a good deal. So brand comparison, again, I'm not going to insult you all. You know that, there's good things and bad things, and there's generic and there's regular, but, especially like on a lot of the medicines and stuff, you can look at the active ingredients, and if it's the same thing, not a big deal. Also, on labels too, you have to look at the price per ounce. Just every store's got that anymore. Just because it's the big Mondo size does not necessarily mean it's a better deal. You look at the price per unit, and that will help you out. So. It's funny, in Europe, where I was a lot of times, somehow the veterinarians in the army are the ones who have to go through and look at the food. They're like the food safety officers. And so you'll see something that's clearly expired, and they're, oh, no, that's good. They just change the date. So I'm a little more forgiving with the dates. Plus, I can eat pretty much anything. I was in Turkey for a number of years, and you needed to develop an iron stomach there that, you go down. So whatever. Can't show fear. Price comparison, so unit pricing, we talked about that. Coupons, stuff like that. A lot of times now, though, this is made easier with some of the online stuff, and especially like if you shop at places like Michael's or Joann's or whatever, they have a little coupon app. You never really pay full price. In some place like Kohl's, it's probably the prices are actually inflated unless you're using a coupon. So, convenience, ready-to-use products. So we've kind of talked about all this. Again, go to the grocery store. If you're a Coke or soda drinker, it's $2 at the checkout. You hoof back to the regular thing, and it's $2 for whatever 3 liters or something. Or not that I'm advocating that, but it's definitely they're a little more up by the check stand. So when they're ready to go. Anybody live in the valley here? I've heard on the big ticket items that there's actually a limit on the sales tax.
I thought there was a cap.
Yeah.
$10.
Yeah, it's not as bad. Because I always see the car dealers out there. I'm like, why would you buy a car out here with sales tax? But then somebody said, no, there's a cap on it. So it makes it competitive. But again, you have to shop around. If I was looking for a new car, I would certainly shop those 2 places and then down the lower 48. So I have, a number of people, my neighbor, Dr. Ferrier, the guy who works on the horses, all these guys go down lower 48 to buy these vehicles, and it's worth it. So, evaluate warranties, limited warranties, implied warranty. It depends what you're looking at. If the warranty requires you to have the original packaging, the receipt, all these other things that you aren't going to have, then the value of that warranty is pretty limited. But again, it has more to do with the store. Some stores are very understanding, very forgiving. But without fail, I don't do extended warranties. I mean, I'm not going to argue against people who sometimes might do it for maybe an appliance or something, but categorically, they're not a good value. And again, the people in the stores don't actually know the specifics. I think I told you about a big screen TV I had. Fell right off the wall, crashed to the ground. It wasn't even an earthquake. It was just like a random Sunday morning thing that came. So I went to the store, and I said, I got to get a new TV. And the other one fell off the wall. And goes, oh, you should have got the extended warranty. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I never get those, but it probably would have worked this time. And so I'm getting a new TV, and they're trying to get me to get the extended warranty. I said, let me hold on. So I called up the place, and it was one of the reputable ones. There's Square Trade. There's 3 different Squares. One builds websites, one takes payments, and one does warranty stuff. So anyway, I called up the Square people, and I said, okay, so I'm buying this warranty on a TV. If it happens to fall off the wall, am I covered? Well, no, sir. That's not normal wear and tear, So what kind of warranty is that? I do actually have them on my cell phones because it's only $5 a month. But again, the most obvious loss of that is loss. If you lose the phone, no. They want the phone back. So It only warranties against breaking things. Yes.
My friend has that, where if you lose your phone, they send you a new one, then you're supposed to send it back, and he has never sent it back. He's claimed it like 6 times, and he's gotten 6 brand new phones,
Wow.
and they haven't said anything.
No, these guys are they're. I always get an Instagram for them because I've got a daughter who breaks phones like
No,
a lot, and that's with Protect My Bubble, which is a subsidiary of Assurance. Anyway, but another one we lost it up clamming. It's in the water. That's gone forever because we didn't have the phone to retrieve. So, yeah, I'd like to know who that company is because it's. But for $5 a month on something like that, especially when she has such a propensity to break phones, and especially with the newer iPhones, they're so stinking big if you put the really nice cases on them. So I'd rather have one I can slip on my phone than nothing really. But anyway, categorically, most of the extended warranties, not a good deal. If you see a question on the test, the actual book answer is that they're expensive and they have lots of exclusions. I can tell you from the real estate business, I sold extended warranties, and I actually resisted. I said, because I had experience with a well that went out, and the well guy was like, these things are horrible, let me write the thing, we'll see if we can get you any money at all. And sure enough, they got me like $600 out of a $2,800 bill. And that was only by him being very careful about what he wrote on the thing. And so when I was meeting with a couple customers, I said, well, we probably want to get the extended warranty. And I was, anyway, people wanted the extended warranty. I said, okay, fine. And I talked to some of the agents and said, nah, nobody, they're not a good deal. Everybody knows they're not a good deal, but the customers want them and they feel like they're protected. And by the time they go to, enforce the warranty, they're not going to be mad at the sales, they're going to be mad at the insurance companies. They just give them what they want. And that's how it is in the real estate business.
We put it on our house when we were selling it as a
Yeah.
an
An inducement.
incentive
Yeah.
for them to buy, and because our roof was old and we weren't going to replace it before we sold it.
Yeah.
And it was on the roof and a couple other things, and boy, it's $200 for a roof, so.
Yeah, well,
Go for it.
this guy,
It cost us $500 for it. I don't even know what it costs, $100? I don't even know.
yeah, but the warranty guy with the working on the well, he's like, okay, we can't say it was rust, okay, because that's not covered. Wear and tear, that's not covered. I'm like, how else can this thing fail? He's like, well, this is what I have to put on it. I let him write it, and it was like, so, but what they're really after, where these companies make their money, is not necessarily on that initial sale, because it's usually subsidized a bit. They want the recurring sales. So, again, look at just go into it, with your eyes open. Look at what the exclusions are. Decide if it's a good deal for you. But categorically, they are not viewed as a good deal. So major consumer purchases, motor vehicles. So, yeah, pre-shopping activities, evaluate the alternatives, determine purchase price, post-purchase activities. You actually can do quite a bit of this online, and they're actually, not that we have them up here, but you have some of these big mega, all they do is deal with the cars. What are the big ones? It's like AutoNation, and they're like Circuit City kind of things, or not. Circuit City's a good model, being out of business now, but they're just jumbo used car lots in the lower 48, and they try and get rid of that stigma of ripping people off. I did have a student who worked at a car dealership in town that I won't mention, but he said, yeah, he left work often with that not so fresh feeling from kind of selling people things that they probably didn't need. But anyway, you can go online. There's different services, TrueCar and some of these other things where you can look at prices and stuff like that. Keep in mind that those guys are usually kind of in cahoots with the shipping or the salespeople. One of the common things that they do is, for example, this has been going on for 25 years, where they'll be selling you a car below what they paid for. They'll show you the invoice, And I did this. I used to burn through these little trucks, the little Nissan pickups and little Ford Rangers and stuff. And I'd just get, I would always get the stripped down ones, and I'd take them to Europe and have them a couple of years and then just, sell it to somebody else. And if you weren't getting the fully optioned ones, they were always the, one at this price at the dealership type thing. So they truly weren't making a whole lot of money. I'm dating myself, but these things were like $6,000 or something like that. But anyway, I remember the guy, brought out the invoice at one time and said, see, I'm actually selling it to you for less than I paid for it, which was kind of a half truth, because I'm like, what about your incentive or your bonus? Or, well, yeah, we do get that. What they do in the case of, say, Nissan, for example, they for every vehicle that they sell at the end of the year, they get something like, say, $2,500 back. Yeah, they get, and so they can say that they paid, $8,000 for that vehicle, but at the end of the year, they're getting $2,500 back. So they didn't pay $8,000. So they can, run out to me as the consumer and say, see, look, we're losing money. This is actually the invoice. This is what we paid. But they're only giving you half of the story. And so, again, it can be a little slimy. Alternatives, again, I'm not saying you get something dangerous or whatever. You probably need four-wheel drive. You probably need certain things, but you may not need, everything. So get by with what you can. And especially, I work on things, so I don't have a problem buying something that's a couple years old where it's still low miles. But anyway, if you can do that, that's not a bad way to go. You also have to be careful, though. You don't see it so much on, well, it depends what kind of vehicle you buy. But if it's something that's like common in a rental car fleet, you might want to be a little cautious about that. Because they won't tell you it's an old rental car. They'll tell you it's a program car or a corporate car or an executive car. They have all these euphemisms for an old rental car. And, I don't know how you guys drive rental cars, but it's, no gas too cheap, no curb too high. Nothing accelerates a rental car. The performance of those things is amazing because you just don't care. And so I've had whatever. I would not want to buy one of the rental cars that I've ever rented. Determine the purchase price. So there's a lot to play in this. Again, first thing I would do is go to whatever bank I have a relationship with, or even if it's a bank that's got great deals on loans right then, and see what they're going to offer you in terms of a loan, and then go to the dealership. And I wouldn't tell them I had financing. I'd tell them I might be a cash buyer, and because essentially they're going to get a check from the bank. It's as if you're buying cash, but see what kind of incentives they have. Usually, or not usually, but many times you'll find that there's a lower price for somebody who's paying cash, or then again they may have a loan program that's got higher interest rates, and they'll give you a lower price, but they'll rope you into this higher interest loan. It depends what angle they're working. But anyway, it doesn't hurt to have your bank financing, at least knowledge of what a loan will cost you from the bank, so that you can make comparisons. Many times the dealerships, depending on what they're doing, will have great interest rates, which is fine as long as there's not a trade-off. As long as you don't, in order to get the 0%, you have to pay sticker price, because then you're paying for that. It's not a zero interest loan. You're paying a premium to get that zero interest. So look at that. And then that game with the whole, everybody always has an attachment with their old car. It's worth $10,000, and yeah, that's probably not. But if they're going to give you $10,000, then they're probably not going to move at all on the price. So you're not really concerned with how much they give you for the rental or how much the cost is for the car. You're concerned with that in-between amount. How much is the net amount to me going to be? So financing alternatives, we talked about that. Post-purchase, operation costs, motor vehicle maintenance. Certainly you need to take care of it. And you need to also figure out, what it's going to cost you in terms of things like that. And sometimes, especially new vehicles, they're kind of finicky, not finicky, but the dealerships, if you're getting the maintenance done there. For example, I had a friend, he had a blew a tire, and the dealer insisted that all 4 tires needed to be changed.
They did it to me too.
Yeah, I'm not really buying that. I don't think they're anyway. In this case, it was a Subaru, and they said, "Oh no, it's very important for the drive system. They all need to be perfectly matched." And how convenient. And then I've got another friend, that Canadian guy. He goes in there with his new truck all the time. He's got a bumper-to-bumper warranty, no charge to you at all, and he always walks out of it with a huge bill. It's always for the windshield wipers were they were unsafe, and the interior air filter was contaminated, and it's always a lot of drama.
I always tell them, don't change anything without my permission, and if you do, I'm not paying for it.
Well, the thing with that is too that I've been there. I've been on the mechanic side, just doing gas stations and stuff like that. And mechanics are they're a dying breed. There's no money in it. What you want to be is a parts changer. Just keep changing parts until you've hit on what the problem was, because it's quicker, and that's where the money is. When I was a mechanic, whatever the parts were from the auto parts place, which were usually pretty reasonable, you got a pretty good rate on them, but we'd multiply that price by 4. Okay, so part of that actually went to that's what the customer had to pay, was 4 times what the actual price was, and so part of that actually paid for the part when the customer paid it, and the other part was split between me and the owner of the garage. So I got a bigger chunk. I got like half. So the more parts I change, I'm only getting whatever. I mean, they get charged a shop rate of like $50 an hour, which is pretty scary because I wasn't that good, And that's where I kind of said, okay, I can do this myself, because I've seen the kind of people who change brakes and all this other stuff. So anyway, but I was definitely incentivized to switch those parts. And the guys who are like the master technicians who fix parts that are on there, they're not making any money, because the guys that are switching stuff. Anyway, it's kind of evil. So keep that in mind. So anything in the pre-shopping that we didn't talk about? Personal contacts, that can work out. I had a friend of a friend I bought a Corvette from. They'd spun the odometer down in close personal friend, spun the odometer down in Mexico. That stuff still happens. Not so much up here, but that was, a close personal friend. So other people will rip you off. Business organizations, media, television, websites. There's a show in the UK called Top Gear, not to be confused with the Top Gear here, but it's actually pretty good, because they really do go after the cars. The ones here are all like, oh, it's the greatest thing ever, and they're so everything. They're like a marketing arm for the car company, so they aren't as hard hitting. And I find the same with the magazines. Government agencies, by the time it's been reported to the government in terms of recalls and all that, it's probably too late in the game. And then you've got Edmunds, Car and Driver, AutoWeb. I'm not a big fan of any of those. Again, they're especially Edmunds. Any of the price guides in Alaska, they're completely out to lunch. You've got Kelley Blue Book, you've got Edmunds, you've got all these different valuation type things, and it's just they're either way too low or way too high. And anyway, it's if you want to sell used cars through Craigslist, this is a great place to do it, because nobody knows what things are worth. And that extends into real estate as well. This is a non-disclosure state. So what it means is when you sell a piece of property to somebody else, you don't have to tell anybody what you sold it for. In other states, you have to reveal that to the government, because that's how they set the tax rates. In this state, by law, it's a non-disclosure state, so you don't have to reveal it. So the tax people are always kind of guessing what your house is worth. So, like for example, if you buy a new house, you'll get a tax bill with an estimated valuation, and you can argue about it. Good luck. The lady at my place, she's like, oh yeah, your house had the deck and there's bears out there. I mean, she knew my house better than I did. I'm like, okay, so I'm not getting anywhere telling you my house is not quite as expensive as what you're saying. Not that it was that great a house, but just the same, she knew what she was doing. Of all the houses in Anchorage, she knew mine personally. So I just shut up and, okay, give it a shot, move it on. The other thing, how we get back to credit scores, where you do want to have a little bit of knowledge of your credit score. But we talked about this last week, where depending on what level they run your credit score, when they approve you for financing, you can actually see your credit score diminish throughout the day, because it looks like you're shopping for loans, and it looks like you potentially are obligating yourself. They may make it look like you're having a loan established against your your credit, and so your credit score, it looks like now you have more debt outstanding, and your debt's going to go up. So be very careful before you go and talk to somebody about in-depth parts of finance. Last week I went ahead and actually it was last night, I pulled a credit report like I said I was going to. I've got it here on the computer, but it's got way too much personal data on it. I mean, I wouldn't mind showing it to you guys, but it's got the last 6 places I've lived. It's got all my old phone numbers and stuff. In terms of identity theft, if you actually happen to stumble upon somebody's credit report, you could do all kinds of damage. But anyway, I did it just per the site that I showed you. Again, if you haven't done it, you might think about it. The first one, they come up in order. Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. I tried the first one just not thinking, and they said, no, you've already pulled a report from us in the past year. So I just hit back and went with the next company, and sure enough, another credit report. So, I mean, that's the way it works. You can get a credit report from each one of those agencies once a year. So really, if you kind of leaning forward, you could get 3 of those. Not to mention if you apply for credit and get turned down. But anyway, it's interesting. You'll go through and you'll look at all your old stuff that's going on, and it takes a little bit of decoding, because you'll think you have Home Depot card, and it'll really come up as some bank in the Midwest or whatever that actually has Home Depot's business, but it won't be labeled as. You have to kind of study it to figure it out. But it'll also show that there's no lates, no whatever, or maybe you do have some lates, but at least you can see that they're aging out. You can see the information is truthful. So, but it ended up being like 10, 12 pages long, and I just printed it to a PDF, and anyway, it's a good thing to do, to go through and check that. But when let's say you have a credit score down in 580 or something like that, you're probably not going to be eligible for one of those good loans. So if you're thinking about getting a car, you're thinking about I'm going to need to get a loan, you may want to take some measures to square away, at least pull a credit report, maybe even go to a place and get a credit score the cheapest way possible. But because the credit report will not have a credit score on it, they consider that proprietary information, and they'll offer it there, but you have to purchase it basically. But anyway, if you do have better credit, you can get up in the 700 range, then you'll be able to get a better loan. And so over the course of that 5-6 years, this could be a lot of money. So one of the things to do would perhaps put some money down on your credit cards. If you've got a balance outstanding, you pretty much want to get rid of that, because that's going to affect your credit score and your ability to pay and all that other stuff. So anyway, have a good credit score before you apply for credit, and you'll get a better rate. CarMax is one of those big things I was talking about. But this is a comparison shopping thing. And Carfax. Carfax is, it's not a catch-all. What Carfax does is every time your car goes to one of the facilities that participates with Carfax, it'll be registered in there. And so, but it doesn't work for, if people do their own maintenance or they go to smaller shops or things like that. It may never catch it. It will have DMV related things, like if it's a salvage title, if it was basically totaled out and then somebody went in there and fixed it and now it's back on the road. You can do that, but it will always carry a salvage title for the rest of its life. But just one of these Corvettes where the guy spun the odometer on me. What I found out was it was my new car, and so I'm digging through it, cleaning everything, and I found an old receipt underneath the seat for some transmission place. and it had all the guy's information on the previous owner. So I called him up and I said, "What was up with the transmission?" He said, "It's only got like 30,000 miles on it." And he said, "No, I got that done when it had like 70 on it." So it's like, oh boy. So that was a good friend of the family, and I just anyway, I called up the guy and I said, "Look, I'm showing up, and you're going to have my money in cash plus $500 for my trouble, or else, I'm not going to your house and I'm going to the DMV." So I drove that thing. It would do roughly 140, 145, and that's what I did, man, all the way to that guy's place. It was scary, but fun. I pull up there, the car's just smoking. Here you go, buddy. Where's my cash? But anyway, I was in a position of strength because this guy he had broken the law. And if the DMV would have found out about that, they would have had some serious issues. Evaluation of alternatives for leasing an automobile. Has anybody ever leased an automobile? That's a business thing. There are certain exceptions, even in business, that it's probably not a good deal. But if it ever is a good deal, there'd be, certain niche kind of things. But for most people, for consumers, not something you want to do. It's going to typically, it's going to have that lower payment, smaller outlay. So when they say, you can be driving this new Beamer or whatever for $200 a month, it's probably some sort of lease, but there's probably a amount due at the end. There's probably all these residuals, and you're still responsible. It's almost like driving a rental car. If you damage it or put more miles on it in excess of what's on the contract, you've got problems. So anyway, it can be pretty involved. We've gone for almost an hour here. Let's take a break and we'll come back and we'll keep talking about this stuff.